In the last legs of chapter 7, Gyan, Vigyan, Yog, a quick summary. So Gyan is basically understanding the Nirgun Nirakar Swarup of Bhagwanji, right? So that is the Gyan, knowledge. And we often refer to it as theory and practical. So why do we call the knowledge of the Nirgun Nirakar Roop of Bhagwanji as a potentially theory? Is because it is absolutely impossible to really understand him completely without actually becoming him, right? And so whatever you will understand of that Nirgun Nirakar, because of the limitations of our five senses, the limitations of the body, once we are in here, it imposes certain restrictions, right? So our ability to really understand him is from the intellectual point of view, it remains theoretical, right? It becomes practical when we start to see him in the Sagun root. Sagun can be Sagun Sakar or Sagun Nirakar, right? So Sagun Sakar, Sagun Nirakar would mean Sagun meaning the one that has gunas. So something, and whether it is Sakar or Nirakar, meaning Sakar is something that you can see and Nirakar is something that you cannot see but you can feel, right? Like fluidity of water is his Sagun Nirakar root, right? Because fluidity is a character, right? So as soon as you have a characteristic, that means there is a guna attached to Bhagwanji. So now in this chapter, Bhagwanji is revealing how to recognize him, how to recognize his Sagun Roop as a source behind things, right? So when we say as a source, meaning something that is not obvious to you when you first see something. For example, beach is the source of a tree, right? So he's trying to help us understand and how to see his source aspect in various world, in the world around us. So from Shlok 8 onwards, he gave us lots of examples, right? So he said that he is the fluidity in the water. He is the prakash. He is the light in the sun and the sun and the moon, right? So here he's basically telling us that he is that which is the essential characteristic of something. So whatever is the essential characteristic, it is him in everything around us, right? So he is the source of all Vedas, Pranav, right? He is the source of all Vedas. He is the Purushatva in men. He is the vitality in men, right? Then he says that he is the pure odor of the earth, because the essential quality of earth is its pure odor. Then he's also the brilliance in the brilliant. He is the intellect in the intelligent, right? And he is the immutable, imperishable seed of this creation. Then he goes on to reveal to us as to why people are not able to perceive him that easily, right? Why is it so difficult to perceive him? So he says that is because of his Maya, the Maya that has been created by the three gunas. Now, because the Maya has been created by him, it is super enchanting. Now, Maya was created so enchantingly so that our journey through the world becomes very easy, it becomes happy, it becomes enchanting. But what happens is that we lose the sight of our goal, we lose the sight of why we came here, and instead get lost in this enchanting Maya. He's also said that his Maya, because it is him who has created it, right? It is Duratatya. It is extremely difficult to get past. The only way to get past this Maya, to be able to see beyond the Maya, is to take his help. Why? Because we are made of those three gunas as well. Everything that is around us is made of those three gunas, correct? So if you are immersed in water, it is very difficult to see beyond water, right? It's like fish in water. That fish is surrounded with water everywhere. So she doesn't even know that there's something beyond water. It's only when she has somebody's help to take her out of water, then she says, oh, there's world beyond, right? Similarly, Bhagwanji's Maya is so difficult and so enchanting to go past because we are part of that Maya. The only way for us to get past it is to take his help, to be at his feet. Just like the only fish that escapes the net of a fisherman is the fish that is at the feet of the fisherman, right? And then he tells us that there are 4 types of, and then he also tells us that another reason people are not able to perceive him is because there are certain types of people that are vicious and vile, right? Drushkitano mudha, those who do bad deeds, those who are completely deluded, right? So we've understood we're all deluded, part of Maya, deluded by Maya. But apart from that, there are dushkritano, people who do bad deeds, vicious and vile people, and they have no veneration for him because they have what is the kind of vrittiya that come out of them? The vrittiya are the rakshasi vrittiya, the daitya vrittiya, right? Daitya, rakshas, and what is the other one? Asuri vritti, right? So asuri vrittis are I, me, myself, right? So it is based on dambh, it is based on ego, it is based on pride. Without ego and pride, asuri vrittis cannot exist in us. And then there are rakshasi vrittis, those who hurt each others and enjoy that just for the sake of hurting others, right? Just the fact that somebody's hurt gives them pleasure is a rakshasi characteristic. So people with asuri and rakshasi characteristics can never understand it because they are absolutely against the idea of Bhagwanji. Like, and that example comes out in stories like Hiranyakaship's story, right? So apart from that, apart from the people who cannot understand him, who are the people who actually have veneration for him? So he said there are 4 types of people who have veneration for him. The first type is the afflicted, the people who are who want something, afflicted, or the art meaning people who are the afflicted is people who are trying to remove some kind of affliction, right? Some kind of physical, mental, material affliction. So that is the afflicted. Second is the inquisitive, those who have inquisition to figure out what's going on with the world. They are naturally curious set of people, and in their curiosity, they want to know what is the real truth. And as they start, they go closer and closer towards him in their search of truth. So a lot of these scientists that we see are part of such inquisitive cadre of people. Then we have the needy. The needy are the type of people who are asking Bhagwanji for some or the other material source, right? Like, please help me with this, please help me with that. They are the needy type of people. And then finally, we have the savant. Savant are the people who are, they are basically they have already realized Bhagwanji essentially, right? They've already realized the truth. They know who Bhagwanji is, who the Lord is, who the Hari is, and they are constantly only seeking him, and they are absorbed in him, right? And then he says all 4 types of devotees are equally dear to me. He makes no distinction between any of his devotees, including those who don't even have devotion towards him. He treats them all equally, right? But he says that by their very nature, the savant type of devotee loves me the most because he understands the true glory of Lord. Because he understands the true glory of Lord, so naturally he is more devoted to him than anyone else, and he loves him more. And the law of nature is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So because of the dint of his own love towards Lord, he gets maximum love of Lord, right? That's why he says that although all 4 devotees are equal to me, but I love Savant the most. He's most dear to me, right? Not because he's making a distinction. It is by the power of the love of the Savant himself, right? Because he has told us in many, many different shlokas, in many, many different contexts, that I will appear before you in the way you pray to me, in the form you pray to me. And I will come to you with the same intensity with which you will come to me. The intensity of your prayer and the form of your prayer will determine how you will experience God in your life. Then he also says that, okay, now we are talking about the type of, the first 3 types of devotees, right? Actually, the 2 types of devotees, the needy and the afflicted, who are praying to gods, right? Now, there's a difference, right? He says that when you are praying to gods, right? Gods are who? Gods are are various energies of the Lord that preside over certain aspects of the world, right? So this world has different types of, he has different types of manifestations, different types of energies, right? So different parts of him are presided over by different deities. Uh, and when people pray to these deities for something, then depending on how people pray to them, they will either reach the gods or the lords. Okay. Now, if you pray to a deity in the form of that deity alone, thinking that that deity is all powerful, and do not recognize how those deities are a part of the Lord himself, and Lord is one. Lord is that Nirgun, Nirakar, Brahma, and all the gods get their power from him alone. And when you're praying to them, you're praying to him. If you don't understand that, then you're only praying to that deity alone, so you will attain that deity. Now gods are also finite in nature, right? They are finite, so you will get a finite transient result. Okay. But if you pray to Lord, so prayer to the gods can be a madhyam, can be a medium of praying to the Lord also. So if you're praying to Vishnu, you're praying to Krishna, you're praying to Brahma, you're praying to Lakshmi, or you're praying to Shivji, or you're praying to Ganpati ji, right? If you're praying to them as a means of connecting to the Lord, then you will achieve him, right? The TLDR, or the summary, is that you will attain what you seek out. That's how powerful we are. We will get whatever we want. We want petty, small things in this material world, we will get that. We want something greater than that, we will get that. And we will get it with the same intensity and speed with which we want to move towards it. We want to move towards it one small step at a time. That's how fast we'll move towards our goal. But if we put in more intensity of sadhana, we put in more effort, then we will get to it faster, right? And you've experienced it in your material acquisitions as well, right? The harder effort you put in, the more effort you put in, the smarter effort you put in, the more intensity, the more intention, the more purpose, the results are that much more, right? They are somewhat correlated to the effort we put in. So that's what Bhagwanji is telling us, right? So we have covered up till Shlok 22 in the last class. We'll continue with Shlok 23. Okay. Anna, will you read with us?
23 connection, right?
22's connection to 23.
Speaking of reward obtained by the worship of gods, the Lord says,
Antavattu phalam tesham
Antavattu phalam tesham
tadbhavatyalpamedhasam
tadbhavatyalpamedhasam
devan devayajo yanti
devan devayajo yanti
madbhakta yanti mamati.
madbhakta yanti mamati.
Antavattu is transient. Phalam is result. Tesham is those. Tadbhavatya is that is. Alpamedhasam, less intellect. Alp is less, lesser intellect. Devan Dev Yajo Yanti, the worshippers of God will attain the gods. So if you worship Dev, you will get the Devs. Right? Mad Bhakta Yanti Mamapi, my devotee, my Bhakt will attain me.
But the reward accrued to such persons of lesser intellect is transient. The worshippers of gods at most attain the gods, but my devotee attains me. Attainment of self by devotion to the Lord. In this manner, the worshippers of gods, limited by their petty desires, obtain the rewards of their worship within the narrow ambit of their narrow expectations. Such rewards are in the narrow field of sense enjoyments, which last only for a very short time. Worshipping a deity may at best lead to the attainment of the power of the deity, but a devotee of the Lord, on the strength of devotion, receives the grace of the Lord, leading to attainment of the acme of devotion in the shape of self-realization. Some persons, having faith in gods, worship them to invoke their powers for helping them in path of self-realization. Such a worship, though outwardly that of gods, is in effect worship of the Lord himself. The saint Tulsi Dasa was an unflinching devotee of the Lord in the form of Rama, but he composed several bhajans for the worship of different gods and goddesses. In all these bhajans, he prayed for their grace to vouchsafe to him the devotion of the Lord. Such worship of the gods is evidently worship of the Lord himself. There is one more point to be remembered. Those who worship the Lord do get the necessary wherewithals of life also, but they are such as would not come in the way of their devotional pursuits and help them in the attainment of self-realization ultimately. Sometimes a devotee, yielding to a momentary temptation, craves for some enjoyment, which is actually an obstruction in the path of self-realization. In such a case, the Lord diverts the mind from that enjoyment in the same way as a child trying to catch hold of fire with its hands is lovingly stopped by its mother from doing so. Thus, there is always a hidden concern in the Lord for the welfare of the devotee, even if the wishes remain unfulfilled.
So I think this is quite clear. And I think Tuvina just explained this. I feel as if we may have read this in the last class. Did we?
Yeah, you told me that we have to start from
No, I think
actually we read 52.
Yeah, I think we read 23. That's why.
We had to start 24 actually.
No, 23.
It's okay. This is something I think.
It's okay. Yeah.
We need something more reminding clearly. So.
So as an example, right, the example that is being given here, we are practicing it currently, right? So we did the Anushtan for Narayan Kavach in May, June. So in that Anushtan, it was a 40-day Anushtan wherein we were chanting Narayan Kavach. So Narayan Kavach, where you are chanting, this entire thing, and now we're going through another 4-month Anushtan that started on 10th July. In the first phase of this Anushtan, we are doing Devi Kavacham. So we invoke we first invoke Ganeshji, then we do Devi Kavacham, then we do Shama Prarthna. We are also doing one time we are doing Narayan Kavach, and then we do Ramcharitmanas, right? So in this we are invoking different types of gods. But the point is, what is the purpose of doing this, right? So he's not saying that please do not invoke gods or you do not pray to gods, right? We are doing that. It's about why. For example, Devi Kavacham or in Narayan Kavach, we are invoking these deities, these gods to protect us. And the protection goes in great detail, right? Like in Narayan Kavach, you talk about that Narayanji, please protect me at these different times of the day through your different forms. Protect me in different types of spaces, geographically speaking. Protect me with your different types of instruments that he carries. So you're talking at a great detail. In Devi Kavacham, they will talk about how different as parts of your body are being protected. In Narayan Kavach, you also talk about how different types of tendencies or the different types of Daityas, Rakshas, Vetas in the form of Krodh, in the form of lust, in the form of covetousness, in the form of greed. How do you protect yourself from all of this, right? So you're invoking the powers of these gods to help protect you. For what purpose? To help protect you so that you can continue to operate in this world and continue to do his seva in this world without getting entangled in Maya, so that your path towards self-realization becomes easier, right? So this form of invocation of the gods is the same as invoking the Lord, because you are seeking their powers, you are invoking them to help you on the path towards self-realization, right? And you understand that ultimately all the deities, all the gods also get their powers from the Lord himself.
So let me just add to this. So we understand that Bhagwanji's true form is very subtle. It's more than subtle. It's more than what we can perceive. The formless form of Bhagwanji, the Brahman, is something it's very difficult for us to perceive. If that was the only version we were expected to relate, none of us would be able to do it. Because we wouldn't be able to perceive it. We don't have the faculty, the biological faculties to perceive it. So Bhagwanji then has allowed himself to manifest with very different versions of deities, versions of himself who we can perceive, and versions of himself that align with our own vasanas to a certain degree. So like a Lakshmi Bhagwan, so you are attracted to money or you really want money, you may relate to Lakshmi ji more. You may relate, some people may relate to Ganpati more, some people may relate to other stories more, right?
Depending on our life journey and our vasanas, we may need Bhagwanji's help in different aspects of our life, and depending on those aspects we will relate to different, or we will seek out different powers of the Lord to help us on that momentary part of our lives, right?
So now that we relate to different versions of Bhagwanji, where does worship exist? It exists at the bhav level, right? Everything we know, we've talked about, that all our interaction with everything in the world exists at the bhav level, the intention and emotion level. Now we can relate to a version of a deity. Suppose I'll continue with the Lakshmi ji example. And we can either make that a transactional devotion, कि आप मुझे ये दीजिए, हम ये करेंगे, आप मुझे
Which
ये
is then
करिए,
not a devotion at all, right? It's just a
right?
transaction.
Or you can make it a seva devotion, right? Like have a seva bhav, which is you're taking care, you are acknowledging, you are being grateful, you are wanting to do more to help. And it is the seva devotion, it is that worship of worshipping her subtle form is when you're worshipping Bhagwanji, the Lord
Again,
himself.
even with like Lakshmi ji, right? Lakshmi ji, money is the most gross form, and the it's the most gross form of really doing puja for Lakshmi ji, right? Lakshmi ji doesn't represent money. She represents the good virtues. She represents, like when you say Shri, when you see Lakshmi, it means she is a embodiment of various virtues. And that is what we should be praying to, and not money. Money is just a small little outcome that happens, right? But she is basically the embodiment of virtues, like Mriduvani, like somebody who can talk softly and nicely, who can take care of people, right? It is all of those different types of virtues that she represents, not money. Money is just a gross form that people have assigned to her over a period of time, but that's the grossest form of her puja. So when you invoke Shri, you invoke those qualities of seva, qualities that every person should have. And when you say that Ghar mein Lakshmi aayi hai, the whole point is that if Shri is there in your house, then there would be happiness, right? Sampatti is mental sampatti. It is the happiness, the peace, the calmness that resides in the household. That is real Shri, real Lakshmi. We'll continue. Connection. Kakuli, will you read?
In spite of this concern of the Lord for the welfare of human beings and his infinite mercy for them, people do not worship the Lord. Explaining the reason, the Lord says,
Avyaktam vyaktimapannam
Avyaktam vyaktimapannam
manyante mam buddhayah
mannantyam ma buddhayah
param bhavam janantah
param bhavam janantah
mamavyam anuttamam.
mama viyam anuttamam.
Avyaktam is unmanifest. Vyaktam is manifested. Apannam is attain. Manyante, believe. Mam buddhayaha, unthinking people. Param is supreme. Bhavam janantaha, not knowing. Bhavam janantaha, not knowing. Mam, mind. Avyayam, immutable. Uttamam is supreme and unsurpassed.
The unthinking persons, not knowing my immutable, unsurpassed, and supreme state, believe only in the manifestation of my unmanifest being. The supreme state of the Lord is beyond the comprehension of unthinking individuals. Ordinarily, persons are so engrossed in their desires that they take their intellect to be the best instrument for their welfare. With their narrow vision, they are unable to comprehend things which are clear to the all-powerful vision of the Lord. Thus, they depend on their own egoistic impression rather than have faith in the Lord's dispensation. Though the Lord's identity is
So, sorry, sorry to stop you here, but this line summarizes the essence of this shloka. Is people who depend on egoistic impression rather than have faith on Lord's dispensation, right? We always start the class, we've always started the Gita journey by saying Mano Fri Jano, right? Like you have to first believe to then experience, right? And this summarizes why most people find it hard to believe, how hard to surrender. It is purely because of their own egoistic impression, their own sense of I control my thinking and those thoughts. Right?
This is also an example of Karpanya dosh. We do Karpanya dosh in our like our invocation shlokas, right? And in that, what are we saying? That please, we basically tell Bhagwanji that I am afflicted with Karpanya dosh, and hence I am moved. I am not able to take the right decisions for myself, for my ultimate welfare. So you only tell me what is the best for me, because with my karpanya dosh, my stinginess is I'm not able to take a full and proper decision here. Correct. Now, what is this karpanya dosh here? Karpanya dosh is a fault of stinginess. What does that mean? It means that I am not making full use of the resources that are available to me. A stingy person puts away money in a locker and he doesn't really use it for the purpose that it is supposed to be used. Correct? So here, what are we doing? We are only relying on our intellect, and we are unable to use the power of our mind. And we can connect to the Lord not through our intellect. Intellect helps us understand, it helps us acquire knowledge. But after that, the application and the experience of the Lord is only through mind. So when we are only dependent on logic, we are only dependent on our intellect, then we are restricting our absorption of knowledge. And we have seen that even now science is coming out with so many things, right? For example, it says that logically speaking, half of our, actually 80 or 90% of our communication is non-verbal. It is non-logical. It happens at a level of experience and feelings. And where does that come from? It comes from the power of mind. So when we do not use the full power of our mind, then we are being stingy with our resources and we are afflicted with karpanya dosh. So if we are afflicted with karpanya dosh, then we will not be able to really appreciate the immutable and avyakt, unmanifest form of him. And this is the reason, because of so many of us are constantly afflicted with this dosh, this fault, that we are unable to perceive him, whether it is nirgun or saguna roop of him. Will we?
Though the Lord's identity is unmanifest, he manifests himself in the form of all beings. Sometimes a man restricts his view only to the temporal aspect of the manifestations of the world, comprising names and forms. He does not elevate himself to comprehend the real life-inspiring force embedded in those manifestations. Such a man is like one who, swimming in a sea of nectar, keeps his mouth closed and deprives himself of a sip of nectar. If a man frees himself from the attractions of worldly objects, he can enjoy his flights in the open sky of the Lord's infinite bliss by experiencing the self. But not comprehending this immutable and supreme state of the Lord, a man undergoes unlimited suffering born of frustration of his petty desires.
So this is fairly clear.
Yeah. Kavita, you read this?
Explaining the reason, the Lord says,
Naham prakashah sarvasya
Naham prakasha sarvasya
yogamaya samavritah
yogamaya samavritah
mudhoyam nabhijanati
mudoyam napi janati
loko mam jam avyayam.
loko mamaja mavyayam.
Naham, I do not. Prakashaha, prakash means light, so here it means manifest. Sarvasya, all. Yoga Maya Samavrataha is veiled. It is I'm veiled by Yoga Maya. Mudhoyam is deluded. Nabhijanati is unable to comprehend, unable to understand. Loko is world. Mam is mine. Ajam, birthless. Avyayam, imperishable.
Veiled by my yoga maya, the coming together of three gunas of nature, I do not become manifest in my real state. Thus, the deluded world is unable to comprehend me as the birthless and imperishable self. The Lord veiled by his yoga maya. To understand the meaning of this shloka, let us take the example of a window. The window in a room serves two purposes. If the window is open, the outside scene becomes visible. But if the window is closed, the outside scene is shut down from the view and even sunlight is refused entry. Similarly, Maya is a powerful and convenient medium through which Lord manifests himself and which can be used for cognition of the self. But if one seeks enjoyments in the object of the world, this very yoga Maya spreads a mist before the eyes and renders one incapable of having a clear view. This yoga Maya is in the shape of three gunas of nature, which create the complexities of the phenomenal world. The Lord pervades all these phenomena, and there is nothing in which he is not manifest, but reality is hidden in a maze of diverse phenomena. This proximity of a Lord, if experienced, makes any other search futile. But if the mind is under the influence of delusory sense enjoyments, the all-pervading reality is not comprehended. With one's back towards the source of the light, one sees only the darkness of one's shadow. To experience the light, one has only to turn towards it.
So here, let me try and give an example to explain the last couple of shlokas. And the example is that of a video game. Okay. So a video game is made by a creator, correct? And me as a player, I start playing the video game because I believe I can win it or exit through it. And every game is designed as a quest or a mission. But I have to believe in that mission to start. Otherwise, I will never start. And how do I believe? Other people tell me it's possible. Other people tell me, oh, I finished it. It was damn good. You should go through it. When I start any video game or quest, I'm not I'm not worried about the levels, the difficulty. I have no idea what I'm going to go through. But what starts my journey is the belief, is the faith that I can go through it. Now, when I start playing the video game, I see a lot of other people, characters in the game, who are stuck in the game because they don't have the belief that if I do certain things, I will be able to get out of the game. They don't have the belief that there are levels. There are other people in the game or characters in the game, because they don't have belief, they are enjoying their world in the virtual girl, in the virtual setup. Following me so far? Right? So when I instill my ability to interact, I use my skill to interact, I fail, right? And I die. But in the video game, when I die, what happens? You restart on the level you died at, right? But in the video game, you're not interacting with the creator, but everything is made by the creator, right? And you're following the rules of the game to make sure you keep progressing from level to level to level to level. That makes sense? So when you do exit the game, you've exited the game, one, because you followed the rules of the game. Two, the creator has helped you move along. Every time you died, every time you failed, you didn't go back. You start from where you left off on the journey, and you continue to progress with your fate. Sometimes you got stuck for 10 lives, 20 lives, 30 lives, 40 lives at that level. But eventually there comes a moment where your skill is good enough and the creator gives you a little bit of an opening and you go through. His grace allows you to go through because you've put in that effort till you exit the game. And the other people you've met along the way, they do not have that belief. They can also interact with the game the exact same way you and I can interact in that game, but they don't, because they don't have the belief. They're stuck with their own ego. They're stuck with their own thinking. So they will never exit that game, right? So this is a crude analogy to Bhagwanji and his creation. We are in that creation. We are those people in the game, and we've now got the manual of how to play the game. It is our choice to go from level 1 to level 10 till we exit. And all Bhagwanji wants from us is our commitment and effort. And it is his grace that will give us the opening to go through it. Yeah, sorry, Kakoli.
So you said one thing when you were describing this, is that you cannot go level to level because you don't believe in those levels or whatever. But what about you believe in those levels and you want to move ahead, but you do not have the skill set and you are so caught up in many things that you really do not have that kind of a skill set to go ahead. So what is the subtle difference? Like, I do believe that there are levels to be crossed, but I do not have the right acumen to, gather those skill sets to move to the next level. So what happens to that player in a video game or in life's game?
So from my understanding, for us, any skill that we need to learn, some other human being has learned it. That human being is given the same faculties as us, so to speak, to sharpen intellect and sharpen our subtle body. We just need to continue doing that. It's just about a matter of practice. Whatever you want to learn, it's just about putting a regimented practice. The fact that you know what you want to learn to move to that next level is a great starting point. Now you can build a discipline around sharpening that particular faculty or skill.
So there is Abhyas Yoga, like that Abhinav was talking about, and we've read about that, right? So we have to keep practicing, keep doing the same thing to get the right skill sets. And more importantly, if you're not getting it despite our Abhyas Yoga, then we need his grace, right? We have to constantly have the faith in Bhagwanji. Tell him that, do your puja, tell him, Bhagwanji, I'm not able to do this. This is something I want to do, unable to do for whatever reason. You know how strongly I want to do it. I need your help. Create the right circumstances for me. Now, whether that right circumstance means creating time for you, whether it means getting the right resource in front of you, whether it means getting you help to learn something in the form of a person, a book, a resource, a link, whatever it is that you need, if you ask him, he will reveal himself to you by giving you that help. कहीं ना कहीं से वो help आएगी ही आपके पास. There is no two ways about it, and I'm saying this from my own personal experience. He's always there. So you want to, whatever you may want to do, if you're unable to do despite your hard work, I mean, before you even start the hard work, right, give it, lay it down at his feet, tell him that I'm doing this and I need help, and know that I'm not doing this because of myself, right? So make sure that there is no ego in here, because first of all, the opportunity of whatever seva is we are getting is happening because of him, right? The fact that we have Gita in our hand happens because of his grace, right? So if you read Ramcharitmanas, right, in the initial few stanzas where Tulsidas ji is just talking about the glory of the Lord, you realize you cannot even reach that Manas lake that he's talking about, right? Manas lake is basically a lake which is basically the devotional lake of Ram and Sita, right? You can't even get there unless you have his grace, right? We can't be in a satsang unless we have his grace. To get to the satsang, we need his grace. To have Gita in our hand, we need his grace. To be able to do puja, we need his grace, right? Just to have the intellect, just to have the mind, just to have that inclination, that burning desire inside of us which tells us that we want to get to him, that law, that prakash that has come inside of us is his grace. If it were not for his grace, if he did not bless us, there is no way we would be able to even like be sitting here in this satsang, right? It is his blessing that we are sitting here, that we have Gita in our hands. It's a very big blessing. He has chosen us, right? He has chosen you. He has said that, yes, you are ready for this. And now if he has already given us such a big blessing, then everything else is very small. You just ask him for his help and he will give you that help with an intensity. It's not a casual request, right? Casual requests, he gets so many casual requests, right? The intensity with which you will ask for his help, the intensity of your faith will determine how fast an outcome or a help will reach out to you. And how do you determine the intensity of your faith? How do you determine the intensity of your actions? Your sadhana. How intense is your sadhana? Right? How do we define our sadhana? Our sadhana is namjap, swadhyay, satsang, and chintan and manan. That is the intensity of our sadhana. So when we start to question ourselves as to why I'm not getting something, why is Bhagwanji not answering my question, then Bhagwanji has told us, right, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Then we have to question our sadhana. Where am I lacking? What can I do better? Am I doing my swadhyay? Am I doing enough namjap? Am I doing what I need to? Am I doing enough chintan and manan on the principles I'm learning? How many times have I thought about my actions, my thoughts, my behavior, my purpose, my bhav through the entire day? How many times was I really present to the day? And how many times was I just, in past or in future? When did I apply a principle? Where did I fail? Why did I fail at applying? Why did the result not come out as is expected when such a principle is applied? What did I not do correctly? That is your nididhyasan, your chintan and your nididhyasan. How many times am I doing my chintan and nididhyasan? Right? So always go back to your sadhana. Where can I strengthen my sadhana? And there's always something that you will find. One small point, and it's always one small baby step at a time that we can do better. Something we can do better. depending on our circumstance, depending on our situation, there is one little thing that will stand out. I want you to improve upon this right now. It could be a practical implementation, it could be a theoretical reading, it could be something. And you will know inside of you when you ask yourself, right? When you ask Bhagwanji, you will know what you need to do.
Thank you.
Sanjit, will you read with us?
Connection. The Yogamaya may lead to attachment to the sense enjoyments and thus dilute one, but it does not affect the Lord's power of cognition.
Vedaham samtitani.
Vedaham samtitani.
Sorry, I didn't pronounce this correctly. It is not samtitani, it is samatitani. Okay, ma is full. Vedaham samatitani.
Vedaham samatitani.
Vartamanani charjuna.
Vartamanani charjuna.
Bhavishyani cha bhutani.
Bhavishyani cha bhutani.
Mam tu veda na kaschana.
Mam tu vedana kaschana.
Vedaham, known to me. Samatitani, who have existed in the past. Vartamanani, those who exist in the present. Charjun is and Arjun. Bhavishyani, those who would be in the future. Bhutani, those people. Mam, mujhko. Tu, but. Ved na kaschan. Kaschan is koi bhi, anyone. Ved is no. Na is doesn't.
O Arjuna, all those who have existed in the past or who exist in the present or who would in the future are known to me. I am not known to anyone who is devoid of faith and devotion. The Lord is incomprehensible to those without faith and devotion. For the Lord, all are known, but they of the past, present, or the future. The reason is that it is He alone who is manifest in the form of everyone, since He pervades every being. But to those who are devoid of faith or devotion, His underlying intrinsic real nature remains incomprehensible. To ascribe one's delusion and incomprehension to His Maya would be like turning one's back to the source of light and then blaming it for not producing illumination. In the same way, the delusion is due to the shadow of the ego, because of which the essence of the knowledge of the Lord evades comprehension.
So coming back to that video game example, right? The person who is the creator of the game has all the data points of the game, right? Data analytics is such a big thing. They know which player is playing at what level. They know how they're engaging with the world. They know who is played well, who's not played by the rules, all of those things, right? They're collecting those data points throughout. Similarly, Bhagwanji is aware and has all the information from the game without being involved in the game, without the game affecting him, right? Similar to the video game creator. Also, like I mentioned, those who don't have faith will never even play the game. They'll just be stuck in the game. They don't want to even reach the creator of the game. They don't want to exit the 10 levels. And that's the exact same thing here. And the only addition is that the reason why people do not want to exit the game or play the 10 levels is essentially ego. Their ego is what restricts them from comprehending the knowledge that there is a maker, there is a creator, and if we play by certain principles, we can reach him and get out of this cycle.
Another example we can give is, so here Bhagwanji is basically saying that the people who will know him will only be those who have faith and devotion, right? So an example would be, you have twins in a mother's womb, and one of them has the faith and devotion, the other one doesn't, right? So the one with the faith and devotion says that, I'm really excited about meeting mother, after we exit this place where we are in. And the other one says, what do you mean by there is a place beyond this? This is what life is. This is perfect where we are. And see, we are being taken care of. There is nothing beyond this. This is life. And he says, no, I'm sure that, if we are here, there must be a reason for us to be here. And I'm sure that there is life beyond where we are today. And the other one says, what makes you think so? Like, what proof do you have to suggest that there is life beyond this? He says, I don't have a proof, but I feel like there is something, right? And I'm very excited to meet our mother. And the other one says, what do you mean by mother? Yeah, where is mother? There is no mother. And he says, of course there is mother. Mother is the one who feeds us. Mother is the one who sustains us. And the other one says that I don't see mother anywhere. Where do you see mother? I'm not fed by mother. I'm fed by this tube here, right? This is what gives me nourishment and everything around us. This is what it is. He only sees the gross form around us, and he says that this is the environment. This is what feeds me. It's got nothing to do with mother. I don't see her. I don't feel her. I don't hear her. He said, why, brother? But the mother is all around us. This is all part of mother. We are part of mother right now. And the other one says, no, I don't see her. So I don't trust whatever you're saying, right? This is all hearsay, correct? So this is the difference of experience of somebody who has faith and devotion and who experiences beyond what is obvious, who can go beyond the understanding of the gross forms. Whereas the person who is only going to believe what he sees in his limited way with his eyes, or can only experience in a limited way with his sense objects, his experience of life is going to be very different from the one who can look beyond those, who can wonder with his mind, who can go past the boundaries of the intellect by using intellect for the purpose it's supposed to be used, right? Intellect is a very sharp, it's like a sharp knife. It can help to discern what is truth, what is not. But the experience of Bhagwanji has to go beyond intellect. So use intellect to the point where it goes, and after that, start to climb on the mind to go beyond it, to go and wonder. Rita, will you read with us?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
The Lord tells what this shadow is.
Ichha dvesha samuthena
Ichha de dvesha samuthena
Vandhamohena bharata
Vandamohena bharata
Sarvabhutani sammoham
Sarvabhutani sammoham
Sarge yanti parantapa.
Sarge yanti parantapa.
Ichha,
For
the meanings, right? We'll do the meanings. Ichha is desires. Dvesh is aversions. Samuthena, arising from. So Ichha dvesha samuthena, arising from desires and aversions. Dvanda mohen. Dvanda is duality. Duality of likes and dislikes. Mohen is what deludes you, right? It captures you. Bharata is reference to Arjun in the form of someone jiska bharan ho gaya hai, one who has been satiated, who does not have abhav. Sarva bhutani, all beings. Sammoham, get deluded. Sarge, in the world. Yanti, get or attain. Parantapa is again reference to Arjun in the form of somebody who goes through a lot of tap, who has done a lot of austerity, who has burned all of the all of the datyas, the rakshasas, the dualities, the likes and dislikes in the fire of the tap.
For, O Bharata, all beings being deluded from the time of their birth by desires and aversions arising from delusion caused by duality of likes and dislikes. Delusion from duality. In fact, desires and aversions delude the mind, plunging it in happiness or in unhappiness. This is why they have been called impediments in the path of the welfare of the person. Due to these likes and dislikes for persons, incidents, and circumstances, all manners of conflicting ideas plague the mind of a person. It is again due to these that a person loses all sense of propriety and the consequence gets lost in the blind alley of life.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite clear again. The only thing I want to highlight here is the shadow that we're referring to, right? We're not blaming the gross world. There is nothing wrong with objects of the world. There is nothing wrong with interacting with the gross objects of the world. The problem is if you eat one jalebi and then you want another, and then you want another, even though you know it may be harmful for you, given your state or your health or whatever it is. That subtlety is what we need to work on. There is no harm in playing the game and making money, for example. But if the desire then becomes, I hear somebody else's success and I feel jealous, that is what we need to work on. This subtlety is within us. And that is what we need to work on. The rag, dvesh, and happiness is not in the objects. It is that ichha inside of us that we need to work upon. So when you're interacting with the world, your mindful awareness should be on your state of mind. Am I doing this out of desire? Am I doing it out of purpose? Am I doing it out of seva, for that matter? Yeah.
Yeah. I think desires and aversions, the rag dvesh is what is the biggest impediment in our path. This is what leads to all kinds of problems, the rag and the dvesh. So we have to be constantly aware. Things in this world are as they are. It is in our mind that we attach right, wrong, moral, amoral, good, bad, all of those things, what I like, what I don't like. We are constantly attaching these labels to them. And it is very important that we become aware so that we can start to see the difference between what it was versus the story we've attached to things. It's very difficult for us to, in most cases, detach. And that's something that we need to look for. In everything, look for the fact versus the story that gets associated with that fact. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of how your mind's likes and dislikes are constantly steering us towards a certain way of action. Right? So we have to put that aside and ask ourselves in every situation, what is the right thing to do? What is the mandated thing to do? What is my duty in this situation? And once we are doing the duties and we rise above the likes and dislikes, is when we will be able to go past the dualities. That is the path of a karma yogi.
I think we shared this example of fact and story with the stealing example, right? Somebody took something from your wallet without asking you, and you immediately build a story: thief, how can he's not a good person, I will dissociate, etc. Not bridging that gap, and that entire story exists inside of you. That is what you need to work on.
Nana, will you
No, Rita
just read.
So everyone's read.
Yeah, I'll continue.
No, it's okay, we can go back to Nana.
Back to Nana.
Lord tells the way of getting out of the clutches of these dualities.
Yesham tvan gatam papam.
Yesham tvan gatam papam.
Jananam punya karmanam.
Jananam punya karmanam.
Te dvandva mohana nirmukta.
Te dvandva moha nirmukta.
Bhajante mam dridvrata. Bhajante mam dridvrataha.
Bhajante mam drudvritaha.
Yesham is those. Tu is but. avantgatam, nasht ho gaya, has been destroyed. Papam, sin. Jananam is people. Punya karmanam, persons performing virtuous deeds. Punya karma, virtuous deeds. Te, that. Dvand moha nirmukta, free from delusions of duality. Mohan, dvand. Mohan is delusions, dvand is dualities. And nirmukta is free from. So free from the delusions of dualities. Bhajante, worship. Dradvrataha, steadfast conviction. Drad, steadfast, vrata, conviction.
On the other hand, persons performing virtuous deeds, having become sinless and being free from the delusions of dualities, worship me with steadfast conviction. Only a person free from the dualities of likes and aversions, fit for worship of the Lord. In the first line of the shloka, it has been observed that virtuous acts done selflessly not only keep away all sins, but the result of past action is also transcended. As soon as affinities and aversions disappear from the mind, the Lord is worshipped with firm conviction, performing all duties for the love of the Lord and with the strength given by Him. The results of such actions are dedicated to the Lord in the same manner as flowers are offered to a deity.
So another way to phrase this entire example is instead of thinking of it, oh, how do I get away from likes and aversions? What we need to focus on is equanimity. That's the skill. That is the state of mind we should be in. And every time we don't feel equanimous because something happened which you did not like, accept it as a prasad, accept it as a blessing, as a lesson. Everything in life is a blessing or a lesson, right? Be equanimous. Something happens you don't like. There's something for me to learn. Or Bhagwanji is protecting me from something, like he explained in Shloka 26 ka explanation. No. Yeah, he explained in 23 ka explanation, Shloka 23, that even if there is a momentary temptation and you crave for some enjoyment, which is an actual obstruction in your path, the Lord will divert your mind the same way we divert a child from danger, right? So anything we like also, or we want, but it doesn't happen, be equanimous and take it as a prasad. He's actually protecting us. And anything that happens that you want that happens is a prasad also. Take it as a prasad, right? That's what we need to focus our mind on. Forget the duality. Focus on the equanimity.
The question is, how do you become sinless? What do you mean by somebody sinless? What is meant by a sinless person? Anyone? Is the sinless person a person who does not perform any sins? Like at an action level, this person will not do anything wrong. What is a sinless person?
Only duty without ownership, doership, or just akarma, something like that.
Yes, yes. So a sinless person, when you say somebody is sinless, there is no concept of the action itself, right? A person who you may call sinless can potentially be performing actions that may seem like a sin at an action level. For example, that person may inadvertently walking along the path may step on an insect and that insect gets killed, right? That action has actually killed, it has murdered another being, right? It's a sin that you will accrue. Or he may say something really harsh to someone else, right? So you may see that this person at an action level may do things that seem like, wrong or something. But he is sinless depending on how he's doing the action, the purpose and the bhav with which he is doing an action. And like Nana said, a person who is doing a karma is a person who is sinless. You do a karma when, first of all, your ego is zero, when you know that the action, the seva has been given to you by the Bhagwanji. Whatever you are doing for his pleasure alone, with the energy and the strength given by him alone, for his happiness only. When we are doing something with that purpose and that bhav, then at that point of time, anything that happens, right, from us, we will not accrue any sin, or for that matter, any punya for it also. It has become roasted seeds. Whatever may happen at an action level, that person becomes sinless. Similarly, if I have to ask another question, how do you become immortal? If you had to become immortal right now, how would you become immortal? Can you become immortal right now? Is it possible? Is there any way?
If you leave behind some good deeds, I mean, which makes like a saint, when they finally leave this earth, also they've done so much of good deed that they still live on. So isn't that immortality? Like not in the body, but in that subtle sense, they're around you.
So like Mahatma Gandhi has done a lot of good deeds, or Nelson Mandela, and we still remember them ages after, or Raja Parikshit.
Yeah, maybe,
For them.
maybe, yes.
That is not immortality. That is them being remembered, but whatever remembrances are there, they are there in the mortal world, and that remembrance will eventually get faded away. And hence it isn't immortal. You may remember certain people for a very, very long time, but even that very, 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 very long time would still be finite in nature. It could be hundreds of years, it could be tens of 20s of years, it could be thousands of years, it still is finite.
Maybe you identify yourself with the self.
Correct. That's the only way to become immortal. And it is literally switch of a button. So the moment you are identifying yourself with a small self, with your ego, you immediately limit yourself and you become finite, you become mortal. The moment that switch turns, you turn yourself and you start identifying with the immutable, imperishable capital S self. In that moment, you transcend every limit. You become limitless and you become immortal. It's got nothing to do with our actions. It's got nothing to do with our deeds. It's got nothing to do with what we say, what we do. It's got everything to do with who we identify with. Who are we? Who am I? Am I this body? Am I this person? Am I this role? Who am I? Or am I Bhagwanji? Am I the Hari? Am I the Lord? Am I that person? Am I that Lord inside of me? The moment I'm identifying with that, then my identification with all the limited things will be completely gone. Then I'm not attached to this body. This body will come and go. It will become old. It will go. I will leave this body and go. But my journey continues beyond this body. I am not this role. The role may come and go. Whether this role is of a mom, a wife, a company, an employee, whatever are my roles, these roles will come and go. And beyond these roles, I will still live on because I'm not these roles. I'm not a part of this Maya. I'm beyond this Maya. So the game is all here. The game is all here, our identification. That's how we become sinless. That's how we become immortal. And all of our sadhana is for us to flip that switch, and not just flip it, but keep it there after that. Momentarily, you will start to see at some points of time, you will get those glimpses, right? And those glimpses will give us even more energy to continue on the path, eventually to stay there forever, despite everything that's happening around us. we'll read 29 and 30 together. Okay. So Kakuli, you'll read 29th with us. With the connection, please.
What is gained by such worship is now told by the Lord.
Jara Maran Mokshaya
Jaramaran Mokshaya
Mamashritya Yatanti Ye
Mamashritya Yatanti Ye
Te Brahma Tadvidduhu.
Te Brahma Tat Vidduhu.
Sorry, I'll read this again. Te Brahma Tadviddu Kritsnam
Te Brahma Tat Viddu Krishnam.
Kritsnam
Krishnam.
Adhyatma Karma Chakhilam.
Adhyatma Karma Chakilam.
Sanjita, you will read the 30th shloka with me? Yeah. Okay. Sadhi Bhutadi Daivam Mam
Devam Mam
Sadhi Yagyam Cha Ye Viduhu
Sadhiyagnam Chaye Viduhu
Prayana Kale Api Cha Mam
Prayana Kale Pichamam
Te Viduryukta Chetasaha
Te Vidu Yukta Chetasaha.
Jara Maran Mokshaya is liberation, moksha, liberation from the clutches of old age and death. Jara, old age, and Maran, death. Mama Ashritya, one who is dependent on me, one who has taken refuge in me. Te Brahma Tadviddu Pritsnam Adhyatma Karma Chakhilam is basically so Adhyatmam is transcendence, Karma is acting, and Chakhilam is functioning in totality. Okay, Tad Vidhu is gain comprehension. Brahma is supreme, the supreme self, the supreme God. Oh, the next one. Sadhi is Sadhi, those who, Bhutadi, physical, Daivam, spiritual, Mam is me, Sadhi is those who, Yagyam, ritualistic, Vidu, know, Prayan Kalayapi, at the end of Prayan, at your end time, when you're dying, at your end time, Vidur Yukta Chetasaha, realize me or know me, and hence are connected to me. And Chetasaha is absorbed in me.
Those who strive for liberation from the clutches of old age and death by taking refuge in me gain the comprehension of the supreme transcendence as manifest in the individualized self and its functioning in totality. Those who know me as the one who alone pervades the physical and the spiritual planes and also the ritualistic plane with their consciousness steadfastly absorbed in me, realize me at the time of leaving the mortal coils.
So before we read the explanation, I think Duina asked the question of immortal, right? And the other way to answer that is we are immortal. It's just that we've forgotten it, right? And that gets highlighted in the explanation of both these shlokas. When shloka 29, it's highlighted as you gain the comprehension of the supreme transcendence as manifested in the individualized self. You gain comprehension, you understand. You don't transform. You gain comprehension of the supreme transcendence. That means you gain comprehension of his creation that is manifesting within us as the individualized self. We are the same. And in the second shloka, it's highlighted as you realize me. Again, you don't transform, you don't change, you are exactly the way you are. You just realize him because he is here inside of us. He is us and we are him. You just realize me. That means togetherness with him. So all of this happens at the subtle thought experience level, right? Not the gross level. And that is why we say only way to achieve him and be him is antakaran ki shuddhi, cleaning your own heart so that you start realizing the truth. Now you can read.
Supreme transcendence, Brahman, functioning, karma, individualized self, adhyatma, physical plane, adhibhuta, spiritual plane, adhidaiva, ritualistic plane, adhiyagna, and realized. In these two shlokas, the Lord has described the attainment of those who take refuge in him and strive for liberation from the clutches of old age and death. Their efforts for liberation result in their becoming aware of the supreme transcendence along manifesting as the individualized self or the indwelling entity along with his functioning in the form of actions and the manifestations on the physical plane, the spiritual plane, and the ritualistic plane. This steadfast awareness leads to realization at the time of death. All these terms have been explained in the next chapter.
So,
Thus,
yeah, I think we did a chapter closer.
We'll do afterwards, after we do the explanation, right? So all the words that you're reading here, right? Brahman, Adhyatma, Adhibhut, Adhidev, Adhiyagya, all of these will be explained in the next chapter. So we won't tackle this right now. We start off literally from like Shlok 1. That's where we take off in the next chapter.
So I do want to highlight, right? We are in the second shatak, which is the Bhakti Yoga, right? This is the first chapter of Bhakti Yoga, chapter 7, where he talks about his all-prevailing presence around us. This will go subtler and subtler in chapter 8 and chapter 9. Because he exists at the subtlest level. So chapter 8 will be tougher to comprehend, so to speak, because it's very subtle. Chapter 9 is even more subtle. He talks about the subtlest aspect of his being. Chapter 10, he will bring back the subtlety within us, how he exists with various blessings within us. Chapter 11 will be when Arjun asks for, he's so completely overwhelmed with everything. He says, I need to see a form. I need to see a form so that I can relate to it. And then Bhagwanji does the Vishwaroop Darshan, which is he brings in a form for him to worship. And then chapter 12 is all about how do we connect with that form through the gross. What is the form of bhakti we need to have to be able to relate to that form, right? I'm just preparing you on the chapters ahead, because please feel free to ask questions, but it does get subtler and subtler and subtler. So there will be things we may not fully comprehend, and that is absolutely okay. Yeah, but feel free to ask questions as we move along.
I think one of the key takeaways from these two shlokas is that, which is something that Bhagwanji has promised us before as well. And he has told us, and here as well, he's saying, you will realize him. That means you will become one with him. You will achieve moksha if you are absorbed in him, if you're thinking about him in that last moment. whatever it is that you're thinking about at the time of your death, you attain that. Okay. So as an example, there was this person who, he was old, he was dying, he was surrounded by his family all over. And in that last moment of his death, he saw an apple, and his thought was, oh, I wish I could get that apple. I want to have that apple. And that's it. And that was the time of his death, right? In his next life, he became a worm who lived in an apple tree, right? So whatever it is that you aspire in your last moment is what you get. So if you want to aspire for him, if you want moksha, then the only way to get moksha is to think of him. Logical conclusion, right? Once you understand how that law works. So the logical conclusion is you want moksha, you want to think about him in that last moment. But then he also says in the same breath, the only thing you will think of in that last moment is what you have been thinking about all your previous life. Like entire life, whatever you have worked towards is what will come to you in the end moment as well. And that is why sadhana is so important. If our sadhana is not drad, the moment there is a bit of a pain, and there is going to be a lot of pain at the time of death, right? The moment there is pain, what do we think of first? Is it Lord or is it something else? Right? So we have to make our sadhana drad so that in every situation, whatever happens, your first thought is Bhagwanji. Right? Imagine how much work had Mahatma Gandhi done, that in the case of a violent death, the first thing when a bullet hit him, his first words were Hey Ram. How much sadhana that man would have done for those words to come out of his mouth. That is the level of sadhana we need to have. We don't know how we're gonna come to an end in this world, but whatever it is, Bhagwan ji ki jo bhi kripa hai hum pe, we have to make our sadhana drad so that our last words out of our mouth are Hey Ram. And if we are in that state, then moksha is ours, because that is his promise. Whatever is your last thought is what you will attain. Yeah. So we'll continue and we'll start with chapter 8 in next class, Akshar Brahma Yoga. Yeah, good class. We'll do the closing of the chapter now. Om Tat Siddhiti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Jnana Vijnana Yogo Nam Saptamo Adhyayah. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Would anyone like to volunteer for the closing shlokas?